Normally I film a favorites and fails video, but I actually haven't really had any skincare fails in a little while. So this is just going to be a short list of recent favorites. And one is a long-standing favorite that I talk about all of the time, but it's now back in stock and I just felt like I needed to highlight it again because that's not a monthly favorite, it is a forever favorite. So I'll start off this video with Paula's Choice 7% Ecto-1 Booster, which I've been talking about quite a lot lately, but I feel like I can't not also include it in my favorites because it's been the product of focus for me. The name has slightly changed on Cult Beauty, so it's now known as the 7% Ecto-1 plus hyaluronic acid milky hydrating serum. I don't think Paula's Choice has changed the name themselves. That could be done for search optimization reasons, because I'm not sure that Ecto-1 by itself has enough of a reputation for people to be looking for a dedicated product at the moment. That's just part of retail sales. I have filmed a full dedicated video to this product, so I won't go into too much detail, but I'm mainly including it here because I wanted to update you just so that you're aware that it has stayed in my routine and I'm regularly using it. And I just absolutely love how moisturizing and conditioning it is, and it has become one of my favorite skincare launches of the year. I've also recently been discussing the new Allies of Skin Beta Glucan Serum, which is a milky texture. So I've kind of been alternating between these at night. This one is Ecto-1 focused, this is Beta Glucan. I think they're both standout ingredients. If someone would be able to combine these together, that would make me really happy. If I didn't already say, I do use these serums at night to really support tretinoin use. Of the two, I've chosen the Paula's Choice as my favorite because I do think the texture is a little bit more special. It makes my skin feel kind of more supple and conditioned, and I think it has a more obvious reparative effect. So it has become a standout release, and I think one of the best products Paula's Choice has made in a really long time. In many ways though, I do think they made a mistake by putting this in their booster category. This should have just been labeled as a milky hydrating serum. It should have been 30 ml instead of 20 ml. It should have come with a pump instead of a dropper. I guess I'm mentioning this because I'm a bit worried. The price point, the format, the volume, and Ecto-1 not being as familiar as other ingredients. I'm worried that it won't catch on, but it is such a good product, and if you're at all struggling with dryness, dehydration, I would highly recommend trying it. I guess especially if you can spot it on sale. I've seen some of my American friends starting to receive this in PR, so I hope that means it's launching in the US soon. But at the time of filming this video, it's still only available at Cult Beauty. Just to recap a little bit, and as the name suggests, this serum does contain 7% Ecto-1, and Ecto-1 in Europe essentially has the same status as a skin protectant. Plus, they've also added glycogen and hyaluronic acid for a really well-rounded serum targeting dehydration. But yeah, it is just in a richer format. So even though the ingredients list is not super stacked, I just think the actual design of the texture and how it works on the skin is really thoughtful and sets it apart from a lot of other things that have come out recently. Next up is my long-standing favorite, which is Build Skincare Bee Cream, and you're probably all tired of me talking about it, but I'm going to keep talking about it because I do think there's a lack of loyalty in the influencer space, and I think we need to talk about products we love truly more often. So yeah, it's a rare day that any moisturizer replaces Bee Cream in my morning routine. I just properly consider it the most perfect moisturizer for my skin. It was out of stock for a while because Build is an indie brand, so managing stock levels and having to compete with bigger brands in the queue for production is actually a much more complicated process than you'd think. So it finally came back into stock, and of course I ran online and ordered a couple. So now I've got 2 on the way, which will hopefully take me through the rest of the year. And I guess just to summarize, in case this is the first video you're seeing where I feature Bee Cream, the reason I love it is because it's deceptively moisturizing. So I think we often have like gel creams or moisturizers where some of them are super oily feeling, but I don't actually find that they're that actually moisturizing. Then there are gel creams that kind of make my skin look a little bit dewy, but also don't feel that moisturizing. So Bee Cream actually properly moisturizes while feeling quite lightweight. It's a fairly airy, almost whipped texture in the jar. Some people do consider it a gel cream, but because there is like a gel component to it, but to me it's definitely much more creamy than it is jelly. And once you apply it, it has this enveloping texture. So it's like a true moisturizing veil. The ingredients are very classic and very like dermatological in a way. And there's a laser focus on skin function, not just fluffy marketing ingredients. ingredients. B Cream just does everything a moisturizer should, but in a really uncomplicated way. So I always compare it to like a white t-shirt and jeans because it's just the basics done perfectly, and I can't imagine my skincare routine without it. So yeah, if you just want a moisturizer that's reliable, that definitely won't peel, it won't cause any conflicts with other products or with other ingredients, that's what B Cream is for. It really lets me play around with a lot of other essences and serums and so on, because I know B Cream is my finishing step and I never have to stress that it's going to cause any problems in my skin. Now, one thing I will say is that it's not super emollient. So if you're somebody that craves more of a rich, oily feeling sensation, you won't get that from B Cream. It just has like a true creamy feeling, but not oily. This is about like moisturizing from the perspective of hydration. So I would say it's more of a solution for dehydration and to create like proper balance. But if you're somebody that's exceptionally dry and your skin needs a lot of lipid content, then although B Cream does have a portion of that, the blend of like humectants to occlusives to emollients is more balanced in this. So it definitely doesn't lean oil rich. It's more about the hydration factor. I feel like I could talk about B Cream for another half an hour, so I'm just going to shut up for now and move on to the next product, which is from Sweet Chemistry. This is their newer release, which is the Barrier Repair Hydra Serum. Sadly, Sweet Chemistry is only available in the US, so I'm so sorry to all of my international followers, including those of you in Australia, which is of course heartbreaking because I'm Australian and I can't even order it myself if I wanted to. The brand kindly found me on Instagram and reached out and offered to send it and make an exception, but this part of the video is more so for my US followers. And Sweet Chemistry is a relatively new brand. They did come out of the gates with a stomp though, because they've launched a brand new ingredient that we've never seen before, and were actually issued a whole Inky for their ingredient. It's an exclusive new peptide blend based on Matrikine peptides, and it uses upcycled food industry waste as the source. We are kind of in a state of like uninspired product design, and I feel like a lot of brands are just copying each other. So it was very exciting to me and a pleasant surprise to see this brand kind of come out of nowhere with a whole new launch of ingredients and a really like thoughtful product design. They're just doing everything in a really interesting, unique way, following their own path, and even some cool packaging design as well. The Hydra Serum is my favorite product of theirs because it just ticks a lot of boxes as a one and done serum. So there's a lot of like existing classic peptides that they call industry peptides, as well as niacinamide, plus of course their own Matrikine peptides. So this serum is all about like just overall skin rejuvenation, whether it's to do with inflammation and lines and wrinkles and skin tone. It's really designed to just improve the skin globally, like if that makes sense, like in terms of just overall skin quality. It is a true stacked Inky. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that sometimes I'm critical of overly packed Inky lists because I'm always questioning whether brands are using functional levels, but Sweet Chemistry talks specifically about only using functional amounts of every ingredient that they've included. And they're also very big on the quality of the sourcing of their ingredients. So where there's like no trace contamination of pesticides in their plant extracts, for example. And that can be really useful for people with impaired skin barriers, because we don't talk a lot about some of the contamination that might be occurring, ingredients that might be leading to some skin reactions rather than an ingredient in itself. But with Sweet Chemistry, they've just gone out of their way to ensure the design is spot on. I'll show on screen some of the ingredient callouts because honestly, there's just too much to mention. I probably do need to film a dedicated video on this brand at some point. And the reason I really enjoy the Hydra Serum is because it does have a hydrating sort of gelled creamy texture, but it's still light enough to where I can use it both AM and PM because it's a touch nourishing without being too commanding or causing any conflicts with other products. So there's like this little hint of emollients while still totally melting into the skin. So it's made it super easy to get all of these awesome ingredients without adding any weight to my already busy routine. Next up is the Naturium The Revealer Sulfur Body Wash. And this is such a big container. I think Naturium does body washes really well. I mean, they have so many on range now. It's hard to imagine that. It's hard to imagine not being able to find one that you love. But I kind of think this new release from them was a pretty brave decision, because working with sulfur is not the easiest thing to do. Mainly because sulfur as an ingredient is such an inelegant thing to see. You know, it smells pretty bad. Most people describe it as like a rotten egg scent. So it's just coming out with products is hard, and getting people to actually want to buy them is probably not the easiest thing to do. Now, I will say the scent of sulfur is usually more noticeable in higher strengths. So when we're talking sort of 10% thereabouts, this body wash uses 2% colloidal sulfur. So it is a level that's a little bit more controllable where the sulfur in it is not so intense. But I think it's still a reasonably functional level to where it would exert a skin benefit. Sulfur is great for things like acne and rosacea and other dermatological ingredients too. So really anything to do with itching or redness, sulfur can work great. So for example, if you have body breakouts or acne, it would be a really great option to try. I've been going through a little bit of an eczema flare up, especially on my legs, which is an odd space to find it, but it's just been happening since I was a baby. And it's been really great at managing those symptoms and just reducing itchiness and that sort of thing. I also think because the texture of this body wash is super creamy and it has like a kind of enveloping comforting lather, it makes it feel a little bit more moisturizing and tolerable, whereas sulfur can get a little bit drying sometimes. Now, I would say the only downside of this product is although definitely the sulfur content in here is not high enough to be bothersome, the scent of the sulfur still does cling a little bit and it lingers. So I wouldn't personally use this sulfur body wash if you're planning to be around people or like in close proximity. It's certainly not an obvious or off-putting scent. It's just almost like there's this like tiny little lingering trail of sulfur. So I'm sure there are some of you that won't appreciate that. Having said that, if you're used to using sulfur though, you'll probably find this almost unnoticeable in terms of its scent profile. But if it's your first try, then it'll probably be a little bit more intense. I think a really well-designed functional product, and I think you could probably use this as a face cleanser, which I've done a handful of times already. And the last product I'll mention in my favorites is from First Aid Beauty. This is their Ultra Repair Rescue Barrier Balm in this aluminium tube. This was such a surprise hit as I've used many products with colloidal oatmeal, and although I've had different success with various products, I wouldn't say it's the type of ingredient that always works really well for me. But I think the key difference with this particular moisturizer is that they've added dimethicone in a skin protectant capacity. And for whatever reason or for whatever type of dimethicone they've included, this moisturizer actually truly feels like it's working as a skin protectant. It just sits so nicely on my skin. It feels buttery and creamy and smooth and is just very protective and skin calming. So when I'm using like the Oma Revita Elixir with the Paula's Choice Ecto one and then following up with this balm, it's like heaven. And they do call it a balm because I guess it is a little bit more of a thick texture, kind of pasty in a way, but it's also very creamy. So I just would consider it like a thicker, richer moisturizer. But the nice thing is that it's absolutely not emollient, oily or greasy. If anything, it's fairly matte looking and matte leaning. So if you want your skin to be super dewy, glowy and this like really rich and nourishing feel, this is not the moisturizer to use. In many ways, I would sort of compare it more to the Dr. Sam Bunting Flawless Intense, maybe even the Jordan Samuel Skin Moisture Recovery. So if you've experienced those more buttery textures without like a heavy oily sensation, that's more the lane of this cream. Personally speaking, and in terms of what works better for me on my skin, I think moisturizers that are more focused on the skin protectant side, more focused on dehydration and moisturization instead of oiliness, they work better, and I think they actually improve skin barrier function better than a super oily feeling cream. I've actually seen some reviews where people feel let down by the texture of this product because they were expecting this really luscious, rich texture. And I think in some ways we've been led to believe that an oily texture means a better moisturizer, but that's absolutely not the case. So as long as you don't mind just a functional product without the illusion of moisturization, then you should love this. And I think it's super functional. And if I haven't said it already, definitely one of my favorite moisturizer releases of the year, if not recent year. That's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you've tried any of these products yourself. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.